Hello, welcome to the Human Frequency. We have a weather war update. We went on our first gifting trip in a very long time. We had been doing Orgonite gifting very steadily from 2014 through 2019, and 2020 was a very different year. So things were different for us. The beginning of the year, I was just trying to get the book done, and that took all my time from the end of 2019 through the beginning of 2020. And then all of a sudden, there was a massive computer virus which shut down the entire world. So we've been just kind of recovering from that, as well as two moves in 2020, which made it impossible to gift. So we were getting every sign during 2020 that this was not the time and that we were to take a sabbatical. Then suddenly we were given a sign. So starting in 2021, I started thinking it's time to gift, and we had places we knew we needed to gift. And we did get the sign, which was in the form of donations. So thank you to the people who made it possible, because now we have taken care of another strategic region.
That region we took care of was Santa Maria. Santa Maria is a small coastal town, basically due west from us. And this was very strategic for us because for a number of reasons. First off, Santa Maria is very close to Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is a major parasitic hub on the West Coast. And we have a road that goes basically directly to Santa Maria from where we are, but we've taken that road already. We chose to take a different road this time because the idea was that we wanted to create another connection of tower busters from the Central Valley to the coast. And so we did that. There were actually relatively few cell towers on this road, but it was more about, again, creating that connection, another part of the grid connecting one spot to another. So
yeah, it was particularly DOR-ish too in this region, because we started going through the Central Valley to get there, and that, although it had a DOR sky, the land was showing abundant rainfall. It was very green, and this region, which bridges the Central Valley to the Central Coast, is dry comparatively in the mountain areas. So it definitely needed that OR boost.
There were actually very few towers in Santa Maria as well, surprisingly so. I thought there would be a lot more than there were. But this gifting was very important for another reason, is because even from the very start of it until the end, we were given lots of confirmations through the landscape that there is no drought. The media is pushing this very hard right now because it's April and the rainy season is starting to wind down in California. But we saw lots of evidence in the landscape that that's just not the case.
It was very green. When we drove out, at first, the Central Valley was very green. And then, as I mentioned, we went through a DOR-ish region. And we gifted every few miles here, regardless of whether we saw a cell tower. And then when we approached the coast, we were in San Luis Obispo County and into Santa Barbara County. Both of those places were very green. There was a lot of fresh green grass growing, a lot of grazing animals, very happy cows and horses.
Yeah.
So it was lovely, and we were seeing some poppies blooming already.
Yes.
It took a while because it was a colder than normal winter, or just, I can't say normal, but it was very cold. Every year gets colder and colder. So up here in the mountains, we haven't gotten our poppies yet. The Gorman Hills will be covered in poppies hopefully soon, but they've already started in the Antelope Valley, and we did see them starting up in San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, it's still getting into the 30s at night, so it's still too cold for a lot of these flowers to start blooming.
Yeah, so we actually don't know what a normal winter is, but this past winter was, I think, pretty normal relatively. We generally have dry summers in the West, and every time that springtime and summer come around, the media does like to start talking climate change. The weather changed, the season changed, so they're going to use this to talk about climate change.
Yes, it's perfectly normal in California for there to be no rain or almost no rain in the summer months. That's normal. But again, the media is portraying it as abnormal and something we need to be fearful about.
Well, they are talking now about calling climate change a climate emergency. And I think it's very interesting that they're using this terminology, because we do in fact have a planetary emergency. It is a DOR emergency, and all warming of the climate is caused by DOR. And the reason it's actually getting so much cooler, even though they keep saying it's getting warmer, it's visibly and noticeably getting cooler. It's because of an increase in orgone energy, which is offsetting the DOR grids. We have gifted so much Orgonite in the West. The grid is extensive. California is covered. Oregon and Washington had separate expeditions. With each one, we took 500 TBs with us to do those places. And we've gone more than once through everywhere to make sure that we cover it. Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and there are many other people who are doing the same thing where they live. So the emergency, in fact, on Earth is a DOR emergency. Now I think we've greatly offset it with Orgone energy. But my book is called Invisible Soldier, Silent War, Orgone Energy and the Planetary Emergency. And I got that term, planetary emergency, from Wilhelm Reich, who discovered Orgone energy and deadly radiation. So he's the one that discovered that all this was going on, and it was affecting the weather, and it was affecting our health and our planet. So now the mainstream media is using, I would say they're using his terminology incorrectly.
Right. And another interesting thing is that we like to analyze these articles. We could also interpret the climate emergency they're talking about to be an emergency that they are having.
That's true. It could be an emergency for the parasites, the AI entities that we are actually fighting here, the ones that are behind it all. If you think those are humans in the government, I've got news for you. I don't think that it takes like a genius to see that there's something not human about them. I mean, you wonder, how could they be such psychopaths? Psychopaths are either infected humans or other entities altogether.
Right, not humans at all.
Not humans at all.
And just playing the part. We often call them government actors. But in any case, this article is talking about things that are perfectly normal, and also they're contradicting themselves within the very same article. There's a line here where it says, "A hurricane blasts Florida." Okay, well, I don't live in Florida, but I know for a fact that Florida gets blasted by hurricanes every year, and it's been that way for eons, I'm sure. I remember when I was a kid, Hurricane Andrew, I think that was in 92. That was a huge deal, and that was an immensely destructive hurricane. So this is not anything abnormal. This is something that happens all the time. A California dam bursts because floods of piled water high up behind it. Okay, so later in this article, they're talking about how there's this drought, but here they're saying that this dam is bursting because there's too much water and it can't retain it.
And so they're also saying it's getting a lot warmer. And then they say a record-setting cold snap right after that.
Right, cuts power to the entire state of Texas, which, by the way, was part of a much larger cold snap that affected 73% of the continental United States, where it was all under snow. So, again, it's contradictions aplenty.
They are putting out a lot of articles about drought. So they're talking climate change, global warming, and drought. And this is programming. They deliberately put a picture with the headline, "Western U.S. may be entering worst drought in modern history." I have to laugh at the title because we have shown and proven that Orgone energy, Orgonite gifting, has broken the drought in California and the West, and in fact the entire continental United States, which got its heaviest precipitation year in the winter of 2018 to 2019. So we are not entering the worst drought.
You laugh at the title. I laugh at the photo.
Well, and then they put a picture of a quarry, which is just piles of rock. And they're like, oh yeah, nothing's growing here. Yet still green grass manages to grow there because there's been so much rain. Of course you're not going to be growing cornfields in a quarry. So they make it look like everything is so desolate. Yeah, if you take a picture of this like dug up earth and these rocks, then of course it's going to look bad, and yet grass grows.
And the thing is, if you factor in what was happening in 2020 with all of the human negativity going on, the suffering, the people displaced out of their homes, out of their jobs, it's a miracle that there was any precipitation at all. But the fact is that we had a completely normal winter. And there's another interesting little chart. Record lowest. That blue dot is precisely where we live.
Yeah, the record lowest rain anywhere was where we live, where all the Orgonite is, where I can tell you it was a nice snowy winter. I mean, it wasn't off the charts like last year. Last year was kind of crazy, and the year before was a little crazy, because what happens when you do massive amounts of Orgonite gifting is you can actually have cataclysmic weather changes. I think a hurricane itself and a tornado is actually a tremendous release of energy, and that a lot of the cataclysmic weather that we see is a result of a sudden release of DOR and an ORizing of the atmosphere. So when we gifted on the scale we did for 5 years straight, it did make some intense weather changes. And here we were getting like snowfall we'd never seen before. And this year in 2020, was the winter of 2020 to 2021, we actually got our earliest snowfall yet in the 5 years we've been here. So I would not call it an abnormal year or a dry year. We actually had a record for our time here, which was November 7th for snowfall. That's very, very early.
Yeah, 2 weeks before we'd gotten it previously in previous years. And the fact is that within California, the past 5 or 6 winters were very much off the charts. So when after 5 or 6 years of that, we have a normal winter, it only seems like we're behind, or whatever they want to say it is, because of what came before that. And they're, of course, using this to their advantage to create this false image of water scarcity.
And up here in the mountains, it looked to me like something was wrong because the grass was yellow until recently it just finally started getting green. And I thought, what's going on? Maybe we didn't get as much snow as I thought. I started to doubt it. And then I saw the green grass start to come in and realized, oh, it's because it was an even colder winter that the grass couldn't come in as early. I know that in very cold places, it takes a while for the plants to start growing. The daffodils usually bloom in February, and now they're blooming in April. So things are a little delayed. I heard from the local organic market that one of the farms that supplies to them locally is delayed in getting their produce. It's on the way, but it's because everything has been a little bit offset by this extra cold winter.
The point is, these maps and graphs, they're all just mind control.
It's manipulative.
Absolutely. And there's another great example here.
Snow map of April 11th.
Yeah. April 11th, we're about a month into spring. This is when snow is melting. So April 11th is probably not the best time to measure snowpack.
Because at this time of year, they can still get snow in the mountains. We get snow here in the mountains, even through late May. We had a snowstorm. And it was like May 26th. I'm trying to remember the date. It was May 26th. It was the latest snow we'd experienced here. It could still happen. So there's ups and downs at this time of year. A lot of the time, the temperatures will go above freezing in the day. So we'll get a melt. So how can you measure snow very accurately at this time of year?
I think the most interesting part about this map is that basically the entirety of California is in the unavailable field. Why is it unavailable? They're pushing this so hard about California being the worst hit by this phantom drought. Well, guess
Wouldn't that
what?
be a good place to measure and find out?
Yeah, or maybe the measurements wouldn't support their claim, so they just conveniently omit that information.
Also, if you notice, the areas in the green and the blues are above average. They are, the green is 90 to 109%. So that's a little below to a little above. And then you've got some areas that are above, and then you've got some areas that are only below by a little bit. Only the red areas are below 50%. The orange areas are 50 to 69%. You see, it could be on the higher side. They don't really say. You could look at this map and say, look, it looks like everything's at about 70% and up and above normal. So if you're measuring on April 11th, wouldn't it stand to reason that if one area got it to be like 40 degrees in the day, maybe the snowpack wouldn't look as high, but that doesn't measure the water that has melted off.
No, it certainly doesn't. And what are the red areas? Northeastern Wyoming, southwestern Utah, little patches in Arizona and New Mexico. I mean, these are not high snow areas. So again, this map is just, it's total mind control.
There's so much mind control. They are making one chart and graph after another it's sort of like the COVID propaganda. They want to make it sound different than it actually is. They're doing this a lot now because I think people have kind of mellowed out about the flu, and now they've got to do this. But they have to do this anyway because this is part of the agenda, is to promote this global warming idea that, of course, is all about control again.
Well, this is the time of year when they can most
get away with that. It's very easy for
that.
them.
Right.
But what's going on here with fire seasons? 2019 was the lowest fire season on record in California in 20 years. That made my book too. It's a very significant piece of news. we had increased so much precipitation that the land stayed wetter longer into the spring. You had longer term snow melt off. You had rain later into the year. So we had a very wet 2019. And as you know, it was the highest precipitation on record for the entire continent in that winter. So yeah, lowest fire season on record. How is it that from one year to the next, 2020, all of a sudden the fire season has surpassed by over 4 times what it was in 2018, which was a very, very bad fire year. 2018 was the year of the Woolsey fire. That was in Malibu. It was the year that Paradise burned down.
Right.
It was a very horrible fire season in California. So how did 2020 suddenly become 4 times that after the lowest?
There are only 2 possible explanations. There's arson, or this data is being completely manipulated. Possibly both of them.
I think both.
I can say for arson, the more that human suffering increases and the more mind control there is out there, the more DOR generators, you're going to have more arson because you're going to have more people desperate and going out of their minds and losing it.
And also arson suits their agenda. They can say that it burned because of global warming. They like to say that it gets lit up on fire just because it's warmer.
I'm not defending the arsonists, by the way. I'm just pointing out that this is just a natural correlation. When you have one thing that increases, this is just what happens. And as far as the data itself is concerned, do I even need to say anything? There's no way to verify any of these numbers. We don't have a helicopter crew, and we can't go around with a guy in a camera and snap photos of stuff and analyze it in a lab. We have no way to prove whether this is correct or not. So,
I can say it was a very bad fire year in 2020, but was it 4 times or more than 4 times what it was in 2018? I don't think it was, but again, I can't prove any of this, but neither can they. I do know the skies were full of smoke, that we were affected by it here. We weren't on fire, thank God, but we were near fires. And it's a miracle that California gets through one summer after another. I don't think that there was tremendously more than in 2018, though. I do think they are making it sound worse and worse and worse. The AI uses numbers to manipulate the human mind. Humans are very bad at math. Most humans are. The AI uses that to their advantage. The parasites that are running the show here are artificial intelligence, and they can say whatever they want with numbers, and we just believe them. You
can't believe the mainstream media. I would think that what happened in 2020 would have made that very plain.
Yeah. There was just so much negativity in this last year, too, that it doesn't look like as much rain as it was in previous years, although it was pretty normal. And that coupled with all of this, it just increases on the negativity. It's like a feedback loop. So then you're feeling negative already. Then you see this kind of stuff. Even I was doubting it because the grass was yellow here until recently. So it's very easy to become filled with doubts when you're looking at this kind of imagery. But you've got to remember the source. And also you have to look at what's missing. These maps and graphs and everything they're showing us, they're just full of manipulated statistics. There are outright lies and omitted data.
Yeah, that's a big one. And one last thing I want to say on this big red average 1.8 degree temperature increase. Here's what I have to say about that. It's going to be different in different places. You can't just state an average. First of all, they're not even telling you where they supposedly measured this increase.
Right.
And second, it would be different for different places. So you can't claim an average for something that you can't even scientifically obtain an average for. Mm-hmm. So that's obviously not true.
Yeah, I also can't tell what happened in what years. They're just making it. I mean, I'm sure I could kind of like look at it and figure out what it all means, but they are just making it look like things get worse and worse and worse. And yes, they are getting worse, but at the same time, other things are getting better. So they're going to focus on things like they'll find a place where the temperature is higher. They'll measure it at exactly the right time of year to get an average higher temperature. So we have to really take their statistics with a grain of salt and remember that Orgonite gifting works, or they wouldn't have this computer virus. Orgonite gifting is not just about changing the weather back to normal. It's about changing the consciousness back to normal. What we have learned over years of this, and that's what my book also explains. It kind of tells you what to do to get going on what we've done here and make it happen where you are too. Your consciousness is what it's all about. The Orgonite itself is just a tool. It's just to help you, like it's a supplement. But our consciousness is connected with the weather. So when we say the human negativity is causing all the DOR, it's because everyone's scared of this like phantom virus. And also their businesses have been destroyed. You know, all this crazy stuff happens, like this, like Fakakta Suez Canal shtick. You know, it's just like, it's ridiculous what they're doing to suppress people's lives and livelihood. And really they are killing a lot of people too with their, what they call medicine. So we have to just like keep gifting because it changes consciousness. If we put an Orgonite somewhere and it prevents one person from going and getting the shot, you know, what if it's like someone's on the fence and all of a sudden they think, hey, maybe I won't get this shot, maybe I'll read up on it first. You know, what if it just flips one mind?
Then the whole thing will be considered a success.
Yeah, so it's very important.
Just one is all it takes. And the DOR grid itself, the actual grid of cell towers, we've documented this for years, and you mentioned it in your book, and I'm going to say it again. It's crippled. It's crippled, and there's no way to recover from it for them. The only way they can sustain their existence in this dimension is by using the negativity of the humans to generate that fear and generate that food for them.
And they're getting even the awakened people to generate food for them because they're scared too. I know so many scared people. And a lot of the fear comes from worries about government oppression or being forced into things that you don't want to do. We do have a couple of past videos called Name and Identity that you should look at to understand how you cannot be forced to do anything to your body you don't want to do. And those videos will explain how. But you can't be forced. But people are scared of that. Other people are scared because they're losing their business. I mean, there's just so many attacks on business right now. Yeah. It's because the AI has a computer virus. It was caused by Orgonite gifting, and it was caused by irreparable data errors in their system caused by certain things people are doing that they don't understand, that they do understand but haven't made an allowance for in their system. They've been given unsolvable puzzles. This is a lot to explain, but it has to do with people registering their legal names. The AI can't function without control of every living being on Earth and without a DOR field. The easiest thing, much easier than figuring out how to hack into their system legally, is to just gift Orgonite, because doing all that hacking stuff, that's stuff we're still just learning about and we can't teach you fully yet. But we can teach you fully how to throw Orgonite around your neighborhood.
Absolutely. And it works so well. Even this little minor gifting that we did, the DOR lifted.
It lifted the whole time.
Santa Maria.
And it started really heavy, by the way, in the morning.
Santa Maria was so much better energetically than when we first went through there in 2017. It was just unbelievably improved, and it doesn't take much.
We actually placed our first Orgonite in Guadalupe in 2014, technically. So we've been through Santa Maria area a few times, and each time we would drop more Orgonite on a different tower we saw. But this time we went and gridded the city itself, which, you know, really wasn't very big, and it didn't take that long. We were able to do this whole thing in a day between the Central Valley to coastal route and the town of Santa Maria and back. But it did, I saw the DOR lift all day. You could see the sky clearing, and that's how you know that the energy is lifting. And yes, it was a better energy there to begin with than it was in previous visits. It was previously a little more oppressive there. I mean, you can understand that with Vandenberg Air Force Base right there.
Certainly.
Very poor area too.
And you can always tell by looking at the sky what's going on. And this was, again, relatively few towers, but it was more about just connecting areas with other areas that had already been done. Just expanding the grid and creating that counter frequency to their DOR grid.
Yeah, and there was one more thing about this gifting trip that was different from any other, which was this time we literally left no digital imprint of what we were doing. The AI totally relies on us to log on to our computers and phones and let them know where we are. They rely on us to keep tracking devices in our cars. So we never use GPS, and we don't use a smartphone. We have it with us for an emergency, and it's often wrapped. And by the way, that phone was off before we left. It was off the whole time we gifted, and it's still off now. We still haven't turned it on yet, so we rarely turn it on. But the point is, we didn't even look online before going on the trip to consult a Google map or look up where to eat lunch or anything like that.
We didn't tell anyone we were doing it beforehand. We brought paper maps. We made our own lunch beforehand. There was, in other words, there was absolutely no warning. This trip for them, just the wallop just came out of nowhere.
We always use paper maps, but we do a lot of pre-gifting map looking online. So sometimes we actually are looking online and just checking out the area and looking for more detail than we could find on a paper map. This time we said, there's nothing that we can't handle that won't be on this paper map. And we didn't even consult online. My point is, if you can leave literally no digital imprint of where you're going and what you're doing, the interference level is way less. We had no etheric interference the whole time. We were in a good mood. We never got in a fight. So they weren't hitting us at all. And we also did not have any interference from cops this time. That has happened. It's very nerve-wracking. And it's happened to us twice when gifting that we've encountered police and been confronted. So it's much nicer to be off that radar, and definitely drive like a grandma. I mean, just drive carefully and don't give them any reason to notice you.
No sudden movements, nothing erratic.
Yeah. And like if you see a tower and you also see a cop, my best advice to you is just keep going and go around the block or go into a shopping center parking lot and park as if you're going shopping.
Yep.
And do it very calmly, and then just walk to where you want to gift and place it. Just do whatever you can not to get their attention. You're just a normal person like everyone else. Put on your mask, act like them, and you're in disguise actually.
Bring your own lunch like we did.
Yeah, no need for the Happy Cow app. You don't need to be tracked everywhere you go. No need for GPS. So use your paper map to get where you're going. Bring food with you so you don't have to worry about where you're going to eat. And just go. Just go for it. As if it's a long time ago before any of this stuff. This is the way to do it. I recommend it. Many people don't listen to me and they use these things anyway. But I can tell you from experience that if you don't have GPS, which I've never had in my car, by the way. I've always read a map. No GPS, no smartphone, and no other tracking devices. I don't know what else people have, but whatever you have that puts out a signal, just off and home. And if you need it with you for emergencies, like the cell phone, in case you get stuck, then just have it off and wrapped. That's how we do all our gifting. This last one was very successful. It didn't seem like a big deal, but really as we were going, all of the craft that we saw flying in the sky were struggling. Their trails were really weirdly thick. They've been weirdly thick lately, and short, of course, because they can't persist. They are trying different methods, I think, to fly through the sky. We've seen lots of weird holographic stuff lately. They're barely functioning anymore. We have to remember that. And don't let them distract you with this COVID stuff, because this is just a cover for their virus. Let's stomp them while they're down. Keep gifting.
Yeah.
Make and gift Orgonite. We have a video how to make tower busters. And I think a lot of people have been doing it, because today I don't even see any planes. I saw a couple. And while we were doing this gifting, there was only a few. They were struggling. And then by the end, nothing.
And don't let them make you all depressed with drought propaganda. There is no drought. You can just look at nature, look at reality. When we see the yuccas bloom this summer, that'll be another nail in the coffin of the drought propaganda.
Yeah. And if you're feeling like you're not getting enough rain, and don't get a negative attitude, just make some Orgonite and gift it around your neighborhood, because the negativity is going to make it more drought. The negativity makes it dry and makes it hot. They rely on this. We release the DOR ourselves. They rely on us to do this. That's why all the propaganda and all this stuff in the news is just to make us into DOR generators, because their grid is crippled. They are crippled. They've left the Silicon Valley. They've moved to underground bunkers in New Zealand. They can't function. So now's the time. Keep doing it. And thanks everybody for gifting. You can learn more about our work at our website, thekembo.com, and learn how to make and gift Orgonite. And please read my articles. I have stuff about the artificial intelligence, what the real nature of the war is. I got a link to the blog, and I also have a book, so you can learn how to do what we did.
And thank you once again to all the people who have donated to us. Thank you so very much for that. We are putting it to good use, and we will continue our gifting going forward.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you again soon.